Hello and welcome back to El Podo, the Primera RFEF show. We are joining you after another exciting round of third-tier Spanish football. And as always, here to talk all these things with me is my co-host, and well-dressed co-host, may I add, Liam Bamridge. How are you doing?
Yeah, I put my Sunday best for the occasion, Nick. I see you're well-dressed as well, although I would hate to have to spoil your thunder at this stage or steal your thunder at this stage. But I'm sorry, McTominay's Chilena is nowhere near as good as Álvaro Bustos' Chilena last week. So it's probably worth more money. It might be worth more in terms of where it gets Scotland. But that Chilena from Bustos is still better.
Yeah, I think that one had more power, but this one was just 3 minutes into a game with, like you say, all to win at the end of it. We're recording just as the Scotland-Denmark game is playing. So if you're not watching on YouTube, that's what we are referring to. I've got my Scotland shirt on as well, Liam, obviously. And 45 minutes between glory, basically. Like you say, it'd be absolutely incredible. 27 years of hurt so far. So, yes, but I'm going to talk to you about Primera RFEF football because there are some things that we cannot put to one side, and talking about the Primera Federación is one of those. Let's get into some news first.
If there were ever any more proof of your dedication to the cause, Nick, this is absolutely going beyond, isn't it? Really incredible.
It is.
Ready to talk about Primera RFEF while Scotland play 45 minutes of football that could see them get to the World Cup. Tremendous.
I have got it on a screen here in front of me on mute. So if I do get distracted or if you do hear me start to cheer uncontrollably, then I have my reasons this week. So I apologize in advance, but I will not be sorry if it continues this way. But yeah, just to speak on some news from the Primera RFEF. Obviously, we're into managerial silly season. We're seeing it up and down Spanish football at the moment. We saw Sergio Pellicer lose his job at Malaga today, which I think is possibly the right thing to do, but is sad nonetheless. Further down the coast in Marbella, Carlos de Lerma, the Puma, lost his job last weekend. He was replaced by David Movia. He got Zamora promoted a few years ago and was last with Sabadell. Took them over and got them promoted last season. So yeah, quite an interesting appointment down there. It was announced quite quickly. You got any thoughts on Movia going in there?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I haven't been able to work out what it is about him that makes clubs get rid of him as soon as they get promoted. And I mean, on both occasions, gone from Segunda RF to Primera RF. And I know that clearly what has been done at Sabadell State with Fernand Costa suggests that was not a bad move. You know, it's worked out pretty well, that change of coach. But it does seem a bit strange that 2 summers running, he's got a team promoted and then left that club. And of course, this time his challenge is not to get a promotion from Segunda to Primera RF, but from Primera RF to Segunda División. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on with that. On paper, a very good appointment. And yeah, Dilemma had a little while. He did great last season, didn't he? Dilemma's keep Marbella in Primera RF, but this season really hasn't worked out. And it was one of those where we knew he was gone, didn't we, when we were recording last week, but it hadn't been announced. And I think that was partly because they wanted to say thanks to him and actually announce the new coach at the same time. And that's what they duly did, just as we finished recording, which was very inconsiderate of them.
Yes, as is always the curse of recording a podcast is you tend to be stuck in time for sort of an hour or so, don't you? And everything else happens around you. But yeah, it's an interesting appointment. I think there was a link where they did sound out Fran Fernandez, obviously the former Real Murcia manager, but they did pop for Movia quite quickly. So yes, another new manager who started his career in the last week or so was Oscar Cano, the former Tenerife manager. He got a 0-0 draw against Ourense back just less than a week ago on the Wednesday. They obviously couldn't play that game at Jornada 11 because they were in the Copa Federación commitments. He only made it 5 games last season, Liam, in charge of Tenerife. Do you think he's shown so far that he's going to get past that?
Well, unfortunately, he does come with the same pressure that was there for him last season at Tenerife because he's not a popular appointment. It's not started so well as this. We mentioned this because, as you say, it happened prior to the Matchday 12 game. So it's actually sort of midweek news from last week. But yeah, we will soon discover as we go through the games from last weekend, things haven't got better for him since that debut in the dugout. So yeah, and he might get further than 5 games, but I'm not willing to bet on that because yeah, it's not started well from at all, has it? Another coach has also been shown his marching orders after the results this weekend, hasn't he?
Yes, and that is Ruben Torresia of Hercules. 2-0 they lost to Orense in the Derby Alicantino. And yeah, basically, I think the writing's been on the wall for this one a while. Liam, hasn't it? I don't think the fans have been too happy with the football. He's tread water with some, pretty decent results at home. However, away from home, it's been pretty dismal. And we heard the rumour that Beto Company was being lined up a couple of weeks ago. We spoke about that when we were sort of questioning how long it would take to pull the trigger. He's now in the building now at the Jose Rico Perez. Liam obviously got Andorra promoted to Segunda Division last season. It's a pretty good move, really, for Hercules, I reckon.
Yeah, interesting. Again, he's only been given to the end of the season. I think the deal is, isn't it, that if he gets them into the playoffs at the end of the season, then I'm not sure if there's an automatic renewal of his contract. But fair enough. I mean, they've spent the sort of money that would expect. With that comes the expectation, doesn't it, that they'll make at least the top 5. And so if he achieves that, then he deserves to stay on. If he doesn't, then he's presumably no better than Torresia looked like he was going to pan out to be. So yeah, fair enough. I think he's definitely proved his worth. Again, he came in like Mobilla at Sabadell. He came in halfway through the season, didn't he, at Andorra, and really managed to get them moving in the right direction. As you say, eventually got them out of Primera RFEF altogether. So it looks like a really good hire to me. And let's see what he can do with what we've already said is a pretty decent squad of players.
Yes, absolutely. And then just lastly, but certainly not leastly, over in Arenteiro, there is a new face in Primera Federación. It is Jorge Siesta. He's been appointed the new manager over there in Galicia. Formerly of Bergantinos, Liam. That does have the little inflection over the end, I believe. So hopefully that's right. Had a mid-table finish in Segunda Ref last season. He's a manager that's been involved with the Celta Vigo setup. I believe he's got, some pretty decent credentials in terms of UEFA A license and all that jazz. So it's an interesting appointment because he's a young coach. I think he's only 40. So, Arenteiro have taken a bit of a, maybe not to take a joke from the previous manager's name, but he's took a bit of a gamble on this one. And they just need to do something to get out of the rut they find themselves in, don't they? Could this be the man?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was linked with the Ourense job in the summer as well, wasn't he? So he's a guy who's obviously quite held in quite high regard in Galicia, and so it seems like a reasonable decision to give him the chance to prove himself slightly higher. Probably not read too much into that mid-table Segunda Ref finish last season. Otherwise, I don't imagine you getting the job if that was all it was based on. But yeah, I think it's not a club, as we know, of significant financial resources, and so they're always going to probably look close to home and look to give a new coach, an up and coming coach, the chance to try and turn things around. As you say, they're stuck in a bit of a rut at the moment at Arenteiro, and let's hope it works out for him.
Yes, exactly, and it's something that you see replicated a lot of Galician clubs, I imagine. We look at Ourense, and Pontevedra, both with Ruben Dominguez and such. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on there. Moving into this weekend's football, Liam, it was the Grupo Uno games that you got to pick, starting with Real Avilés against Arenas de Getxo.
Yeah, Real Avilés Industrial 0, Ourense de Getxo 0. We've had another week this week, haven't we, Nick? Where, although overall there's been plenty of goals flying in Primera RF, several of the games that we chose as ones to watch ended goalless. But I thought it was a decent game overall, and I'm obviously really pleased for Ourense de Getxo, who've lost their first 5 games away from Gorbella. We know they're strong at home. And they've been really dismal away from home. And amazingly, a clean sheet against the high scorers in the league. I think Real Avilés Industrial in the first 11 games scored 20 goals. And overall, I thought it was a really encouraging performance. I thought they played really well. Ourense de Getxo and didn't play at all like a side that had been really struggling away from their home turf. And they could have had all 3 points to me. They had the better chances overall. I think Urco Collada at one effort well saved. I think Sustacha, who scored last week, I think, had a goal disallowed. It was correctly disallowed for handball. It's one of those ones that bounced him, sort of hit him on the arm. He clearly gained an advantage by the fact it hit his arm, and but he didn't make any motion to try and control it with his arm. It just hit his arm, and then as it was, it fell nicely into his path, and he finished nicely. But yeah, it had to be disallowed, and it was. But yeah, I think if you look at it overall, the second half was a little bit less inspiring for either side. I think they probably deserved a win, and as to get you, but they'll certainly take the point to stop the rot in their quest to move up the table and do a little bit better away from Gorbella. But yeah, overall, not a bad game, I thought, for a 0-0. In fact, I thought honestly that probably it was a better game than the next of my chosen games, which had 2 goals in it, which was the derby, Ponferradina against Lugo. Ponferradina 1, Lugo 1. But apart from the goals, didn't think an awful lot happened, Nick.
No, it was a pretty, like I say, a bit of feisty encounter, as they always are, as derby should be, but didn't make for a lot of goal-mouth action, though, because they seem to like try to cancel each other out, don't they? And I think the fact that we got both the goals in the first half of this game sort of like made it a bit more of a weary one, didn't it? It was Lugo keeper who probably feel like he should have kept out Andoni Lopez's strike. He opened up the scoring very much in the first half, and then his opposite number, Angel Jimenez, will also be very disappointed that he can prevent Unzeeta's equaliser. Sorry. Could have won it late on though, Ponfe, couldn't they? El Torolin, it would have been a big win for them. Obviously, they've turned a bit of a corner recently, Liam, but Sergio Benito just couldn't quite turn it home.
No, he's in on goal though, isn't he? Right foot, left hand side of the box, tries to just bend it into that far corner. He is 1-on-1 with the keeper. I think he should really at least hit the target or make the keeper do something to keep it out. And yeah, he doesn't manage to do that. And I think the draw was about right overall. But yeah, I mean, the 2 goals in the first half were pretty much all that happened, and the second half not an awful lot more either. And I just think both sides will come away from it. Yes, it's a derby. No one wants to lose a derby, but neither will be particularly happy with that draw overall. Ponfe now a few points off the top 5, and Lugo a point behind them, and they still haven't won away from home. They've played 7 games on the road now and haven't won any of them. So yeah, I think both sides would have wanted to win this one, but I don't think either did enough to deserve the 3 points, if I'm honest. The big game down on the island, one of the islands anyway, it ended up being a little bit of a non-event, didn't it, in the end? Although I think 4-0 the Tenerife victory over Celta Fortuna slightly flattered them. I don't think it was a 4-0 game, was it?
No, and I think, like you say, we expected maybe something a little bit tighter here in terms of, Celta Fortuna obviously being quite a good side this season. Tenerife have obviously been less than impressive as of late, but this is exactly what the doctor ordered, wasn't it, Liam? A home win where they, put a filial to the sword in emphatic fashion. Jesus Di Miguel back amongst the goals. Galejo opened the scoring after just I think it was about 60 seconds. And then, like you say, 2 more goals in added time towards the back end of the game. As you say, probably made for a slightly flattering scoreline. But ultimately, when it comes to the end of the season and they look at results like this, where, Tenerife, who are still top of the league and haven't relinquished that spot since the start of the season, they've managed to put a big rival to bed here in terms of that promotion picture, haven't they?
Yeah, very much so. Let's not forget that in Primera RFEF as well, goal average does count, so if we expect Celta Fortuna to keep going all season and be one of Tenerife's main challengers, that head-to-head is well and truly lost, isn't it? They're not going to come back and win 4-0, I don't think, in Vigo in the return fixture. So that's important. And, they were their nearest rivals going into this match day, Celta Fortuna, so Tenerife, and now 4 points clear at the top. So, yeah, despite the fact they've had a little bit of a dodgy run, a couple of games at home, and they haven't scored against opposition that they expect to score against, and then that defeat in Baracaldo as well, which was pretty unimpressive. They're still 4 points clear at the top, and yeah, this was certainly a boost to them after a little bit of a shaky spell.
Yeah, and we'll do well to sort of like maybe dismay any maybe thoughts around the manager, Liam. Obviously, again, we're starting to see this happen as we started the show with, a lot of teams are getting itchy trigger fingers and thinking, well, if we can't get it right now, well, we're going to miss out on the opportunity to bring in our number 1 target who may go elsewhere. Are there still those questions around the Tenerife manager at the moment?
Well, I find it bizarre that whether they're in the first place, to be honest, because, yeah, they've had a little bit of a poor run, but, I don't think anyone should feel they have a God-given right to get promoted immediately back to Segunda Primera Federación. And overall, it's a 38 game season, and at this stage they're in a very strong position, despite the fact they've had a little bit of a poor run. And it seems remarkable that anyone would think that there might not be the way forward. But yeah, we know what it's like. look a division above, and you've got Jose Alberto Lopez sitting right at the top of the Segunda División with Racing Santander, and a lot of people think he should be moved on. So it's a funny world we live in, isn't it, Nick? The hire and fire culture, really. And I think Tavera will be okay for a good while yet, and I still expect Tenerife to win the league. But I think for everyone's benefit, apart from Tenerife fans, it would be good if somebody else gave them the run for their money, just to keep it competitive at the top.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure we'll start to see that eke out a little bit more as well, with teams still within touch and distance in those playoff positions. So Tenerife just got to keep on doing what they need to do. I am just keeping one eye on the screen next to me, Liam, as there is a potential penalty check for Denmark, which I'm nervous about. Anyway, I'll take my mind off it by looking towards Grupo 2, Atlético Stanlequeño 0, Ibiza 0, an opportunity for Stanlequeño to stop the rot. Still winless as well for Miguel Alvarez as Ibiza boss. To be honest, Liam, on paper, this looks like a bit of a non-event, but it was all Ibiza's way. And the big part for me on this is they just can't seem to finish in the final third. So many chances in this match. Sofian did have the ball in the net, and it was a bit of a dubious offside for me. I really couldn't tell how the linesman, A, didn't call it back quicker, and B, was then able to see on FES that it was actually offside. But again, just couldn't take the chances, which is so unusual for this Ibiza side that is absolutely stacked with attacking talent. We look at Fran Castillo, Bebe, Devo, Sofian. There's so many players that can score goals. What is going wrong for Ibiza at the minute?
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? I mean, 14 attempts at goal, I think it was overall, wasn't it? And, Stanlequeño were there for the taking, really. They've had a really poor run. They'll be pleased, obviously, to have stopped that rot with this draw, but they didn't really deserve it at all. And already, we've just talked about how can Tavera be under pressure when he's top of the league? How can Alvarez at Ibiza be under pressure when he's only just got there? But, 1 point out of a possible 12, that they're nearer the relegation places than they are, much nearer the relegation places than they are the top 5. He's only got a contract to the end of the season. It wouldn't take an awful lot, therefore, to pay him off. And we know that the owner of Ibiza's got plenty of money. Maybe if things don't turn really soon, he may just say this is the wrong hire and go and look for somebody else. It is baffling, equally baffling. I agree with you as the offside. I don't really understand. I would have definitely given Sofian the benefit of the doubt on that one. He, of course, was at Atlético Stanlequeño last year on loan, I think, from Ceuta, did really well there. So he'd be particularly pleased to score on his return to San Luca. But no, I can't work it out at all. And if they don't start winning games soon, I think Alvarez may well and be very short-lived as their coach.
Yes, no, I think I agree on that one. And again, I think, the point maybe masks some of the problems behind Atlético Stanlequeño. You could say, this was a really resolute, defensive performance, but ultimately for me, this was more of a matter of missed opportunities for Ibiza rather than, a defensive masterclass from Stanlequeño. So they've still got their problems, still winless in, I think it's now 7 or 8 games, Liam, which is a bit of an issue. So we will certainly keep an eye on that to see whether they change their manager too going forward. The next game I had was, or the next 2 games, unfortunately, both ended up 0-0. But we'll start in Murcia. Real Murcia 0, Teruel 0. And I think this game can definitely be summed up with the fact that the highlights are only 1 minute and 49 seconds long, which is definitely the shortest amount of highlights I've seen, even with all the FVS checks thrown in there for good measure, Liam. It wasn't a highlight fest. On the face of it, a very good defensive display from Teruel, I would say, Liam. They've gone away to one of the biggest stadiums in the league, one of the sleeping giants, so to speak, a team that are in form as well, Real Murcia. And, they come away unscathed, which is a real testament to Vicente Paras and what he's doing with Teruel. Unfortunately, something to be noted here, Lee, was the reaction of Real Murcia. It wasn't a very dignified and classy assessment at the end of this match, was it?
No, I didn't like it at all. I thought it was really poor. I called it out on our X feed. I just think for an official club X account or Twitter account, whatever you want to call it, to be describing Teruel as muy defensivo, very defensive. No, I disagree. I don't think that Wolfe did a great deal. I'm getting a bit tired of this Teruel bashing, to be honest, Nick. I think it's ridiculous. I've watched several games recently, and I don't see them as excessively defensive. I think they're well organised, and they in this game, for me, they created as much of an attacking threat as Real Murcia. In fact, I think they created more of an attacking threat. So what does that say about how successful Real Murcia were in their attacking exploits? Not very. And I think, to be fair, a lot of Real Murcia fans also felt that this was a bit uncalled for and didn't like that particular slant that the official Twitter feed put on it. And yeah, it's just not classy. Exactly what you said, Nick. It's not classy. It's almost like that sense of entitlement. They should just rolled over and got beaten by us because we're a big club and they're a small club. I think you probably find that the Real Murcia budget's 5 times the Teruel budget. And so ultimately just be a little bit more dignified in terms of not getting the result you want, and don't try and blame it all on the other team being muy defensivo, because to me that was a nonsense.
Yes, stay humble, Real Murcia. Remember who you are, and because, like you say, they should. They are a club that is dignified. They're not not usually one of these clubs which have an attitude, are they? So it's a bit of an unusual stance for them. So and take nothing away from Teruel as well, Liam. Like I said, I was watching the very limited highlights of this game, and like I say, I saw Teruel with more chances.
I think there's a couple of really decent saves by Gazzaniga. I think without those, they win the game, because Real Murcia offered very little, and let's not forget that, as you say, they were on a decent run with Colunga, and they would have every expectation of scoring and certainly of creating more than they did, and fair play to Teruel for not allowing to do that. So yeah, I think hopefully somebody got a little bit of a bollocking on Monday morning after posting that.
Yes, a slap on the wrist. I'm just looking at the corner of my eye. Scotland have conceded a goal, Liam. It is 1-1. Rasmus Højlund just lashed in a penalty. However, Denmark are down to 10 men. So now, Christiansen with a second yellow card is what we need. Anyway, on to Eldense against Hercules.
Ironically, on the podcast.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Eldense against Hercules, the result that obviously ultimately lead to Torresia's reign ending. It was a real packed house in Elda to see Barashan continue his good start to life in Eldense. Liam, it's been a really good one. And the home side were on top from the beginning for me here, hitting the bar with a very speculative shot. Before then, the league's hot striker, what I assume is now 38, maybe even 39-year-old, Dione, scoring his 5th goal of the season, just slotting it between Abad's legs. A really tidy finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he's certainly somebody who's benefited from Balogun coming in, hasn't he? I think he might have got 4 of those 5 goals since the coach changed. And I think Hercules, it's interesting. I don't want to talk about Malaga on a Primera Federación on podcast, but yeah, I felt like Pellicer obviously lost his job today after a not bad performance from Malaga last night in defeat against Culturalenes. And I think it's the same here for Torrecilla. I know he's been on borrowed time, as Pellicer has been for the last few weeks, but I didn't think overall Hercules were that bad in this game. But you lose the game 2-0 against your local rivals, and you're not surviving that when there were already doubts about your tenure, are you? And yeah, I mean, it's very encouraging from Eldense's point of view. But I would think if Better Company looks back at this 90 minutes, and I imagine he wasn't foolish enough to be in the stadium because it's quite a small stadium, he'd be very easily spotted. But when he watches this game back, I think he'll see a lot there that will encourage him and make him think that he could really turn things around quite quickly for Hercules, because we know they have got a good squad. He just needs to get them all moving in the same direction, and then I think we will see a fairly instant improvement from him. And he certainly managed to do that at Andorra last year, so I wouldn't back against him doing it here as well.
No, absolutely. I think where his strengths truly lied as well last season was managing to get the attacking forces of Andorra ticking over. And I'm not saying that Hercules have got the likes of Nieto and De Leon, if I remember rightly, was his name. But they have got Slavi, who's a really good attacking talent. They have got Soldevere to back him up once he comes back from injury. So he's got time on his side now. So let's see whether he can get Hercules ticking and moving up that table to where they really should be. let's move across to some other results. So starting with Sabadell 2, Betis Deportivo 1. I don't know why I've done that the other way around, because obviously Betis Deportivo are at home. But don't forget that this is the newly promoted side who are still unbeaten, almost a third of the way through to the season, Liam. Looked like they were going to have to settle to a point until SVS intervened, and in a much more positive way, unless you are a Betis Deportivo fan. Escudero's 94th minute winner. He appears, he pops up at the back post, he scores a goal. The referee is immediately calling for FVS to check on it, because I think he gets called offside. He's miles on, isn't he?
Yeah, he's comfortably on, and I think this is one of these examples. I say we do FVS bash quite a lot, don't we? And we feel there's a lot of things that still need to be ironed out. But this is exactly what you wanted to intervene with, because this could be crucial, couldn't it? I mean, I'm not suggesting Sabadell are guaranteed to make the top 5 by any matter of means, but there's 2 points that they would have lost here quite unfairly. And again, we saw this situation where the 4th official checks it and then calls the referee across, and we know, of course, at that point the 4th official has spotted something very amiss. I mean, yeah, it's a clear. It's clear in the sense that, you know, assistant referees at this level, albeit in theory semi-professional, should be able to spot that the right back of Betis Deportivo was playing on Escudero. But yeah, it's not like 5 yards onside, is it? It is relatively narrow, and that's where technology can instantly solve that problem, because although we've said we don't want technology when it's not particularly advanced to be deciding on these kind of decisions, this is a very clear-cut one where they can say, yes, this is clearly onside. And Escudero's goal duly stands, and it's a really decent win for them. And again, we see Sabadell score 2 goals on the road, which is twice as many as they scored all season at home. So if they can just sort the home form out, they really are a live contender for the playoffs. But right now, they need to get a few more goals in front of their own fans.
Absolutely flying away from home, aren't they? The next game is Real Madrid Castilla 2, Cacereño 0. Don't want to dwell too well on the crybabies of this league, but 2 late goals on for them secured all 3 points against Cacereño, who have now conceded 10 goals in the last 4 games, Liam, and just scored 1. So it's not a surprise, really, that they're in the relegation zone. We've addressed this a couple of times, that the lack of scoring goals is a major problem. And, you know, we shouldn't be surprised that, you know, they've lost away here to Castilla, but still, it doesn't make for good reading, does it?
It doesn't at all. I'm amazed that you've managed to control yourself and not mention that penalty, which, oh dear. After throwing the toys at the pram last weekend, if that isn't a home decision, I don't know what is. I totally agree with you. The guy slips over, I think, and there's hardly any contact. Yeah. I don't think it made much difference. You say, unfortunately, I think Cacereño could have stayed out there all day and not scored. They really are struggling in front of goal, and yeah, I think the squad is definitely has always been lacking, you know, a decent number 9, and yeah, they will have to go out and find somebody in the winter transfer window. As I think that their stay in Primera RFEF will be brief, I'm afraid. Osasuna Promesas 2, Baracaldo 0. This is a kind of surprise result, Nick, that we really don't like to see, do we? Osasuna came into this, I think there were no wins in 7 coming into this game, and Baracaldo hadn't lost since the opening day of the season in the league. So yeah, however, it wasn't really a very Spanish kind of day in terms of the weather, was it?
No, it really wasn't. It was blowing a gale, and Tajona was really, you know, it's a terrible place to play football, isn't it? You know, it's as training ground as it probably gets as far as the filial stadiums are concerned. And it just didn't seem to go Baracaldo's way at all. And it's not that they played particularly well either, but Osasuna Promesas just took their chances in this one, didn't they? The first goal, which was kind of like an attempt to play the offside trap, just didn't really work for them. And it was well and duly slotted in to open the scoring. But then the second goal, Liam, like, to be fair, you know, we do like to do some filial bashing, but, you know, Raul, I think, is it Raul Castro?
Casco, I think it is. Yeah. I mean,
Casco, yeah.
He's the left back, isn't he? I mean, when I was picking my Grupo Uno team this week, I was through gritted teeth thinking I've got to pick this lad because he had a really decent game overall, and this is an absolutely cracking goal. He strikes with the outside of his left boot as well, doesn't he? Strikes it like a true forward, or at least a left winger when he's actually a fullback, unless he also plays in the wing. Maybe he's just slotting in at the back for the moment. But yeah, you're right though. It's just such an underwhelming place to play a Primera Federación game, isn't it? It really is. I did notice though, I don't spend much time looking at what is going on at Jornada, because obviously I don't really like Osasuna Promesas, but I did notice that I this earlier this season, or whether it was last season, I took the piss out of them because they had one of those old school scoreboards where you just kind of have those metal numbers that you kind of hang on it. And I noticed when I was watching these highlights that they've now got a fancy electronic one. So once again, Nick, as you can see, we clearly have people listening to us in high places, because as soon as we mention something, they do something to change it. So all we need to do is work on the announcement of when they are getting rid of them coaches, so it doesn't coincide with our recording schedule. But yeah, I think overall they weren't great, were they? But again, you've got a really dubious offside decision which denies them an equaliser here. It's a positional offside. It's one where the ball goes over the top and somebody runs onto it, and then there's somebody who is offside who stops running towards it, and he's deemed to, I don't know what he's deemed to have done. It's just, to me, it's a nonsense. It should be given. So yeah, despite having been pretty poor throughout, they could still have had that equaliser, and they didn't. And then Chasco smashes one in the top corner, and that's it really. So yeah, just I suppose they just have to move on and say the whole occasion must have been pretty depressing for them, and they're back home this week, I think, aren't they? So I'm sure it'll be a more pleasant experience for them, and hopefully they'll get back to winning ways.
Absolutely. And for one Filial winning, we'll take another one losing next, Liam. A remontada for the home side, Tarazona, who just continue to defy the odds for me here, Liam. They did go 1 goal down to Villarreal Bay when Alassane gave them the lead. He picked us up second yellow and obviously gets sent off. However, these next 2 goals from Tarazona, just basically, you get the equaliser, but it's the 10th minute of added time, literally the 100th minute, the last kick of the game, where Carrasco heads home the winner, and it just sends the I think I put on Twitter, didn't I? It sends the Municipal Tarazona into the raptures, and there's just nothing to say here. This is nothing short of incredible, is it? From this,
I love it. I love this team. I really do. I know, as you said before, they're easy to bash because sometimes they're a bit direct, a bit route one in the way they play the football. What spirit they have! And I put out a clip, didn't I, of 3 years the captain, and just having a good old chat with him afterwards, and so it's just saying all the right things, about the mister and everything, and then quoting a very famous quote from Juanito, who it's actually in Italian, a quote about 90 minuti, molto longo, and then all this kind of stuff. Because apparently I had to look it up because I didn't know. It's a very famous expression apparently, because Juanito said this to an Italian defender in 1986, believe it or not, playing for Real Madrid. And basically they lost the first leg 2-0, and he basically said, 90 minutes is a mighty long time in the Bernabeu, as if to say, you think you won this tie. I didn't actually look up whether Real Madrid came back and won it. I imagine they must have done, otherwise the comment Juanito made would probably not be so famous. But I love the fact, it's not the first time obviously somebody's done it, but 3 years kind of basically aped that comment and went, 90 minuti, molto longo in Municipal. I was like, love it. Love that he's just tapped into that and just says everything about this team. I've actually got the pleasure, Nick, of seeing them this week, and I'm really looking forward to it, to be fair, regardless of whether they are battling and spirited and not necessarily incredibly refined in their approach. I just think I love everything about the way this team is set up, and they're the underdogs every time they go out, aren't they? And again, they picked up a great win against a Filial with far more resources than they have, and what's more, they did it coming from behind, which was brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely, and like I say, more for it this way as well with Tarazona, because we thought that we dead and buried with the losses that they had with Fuentes and Friuli especially. This is just incredible. Up to Pazaron, Pontevedra 1, Merida 1, an eventful afternoon in the pouring rain. It opened with a thumping header from Compa, his first start in the league, who is a local boy who was knocking him in for a Tercera side, if I remember right. I think it was Arosa. He gave the home side a lead, but then it was the interesting decision to let the Merida equaliser stand in this one, Liam, that caused a bit of the controversy, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, but I kind of feel like I quite like this overall. I'm not suggesting I just like this because I quite like Merida, because I also like Ponteverde. I just quite like the fact that I get the feeling here, and I know I've seen more replays of it, and it does look like it might be offside, but I feel like what they've decided here is that you cannot make these marginal decisions, and it is pretty marginal with these cameras. You know, it's much more marginal for me, for instance, than the decision to to allow the Escudero goal to be overturned and for it to be onside rather than offside. I like the principle of going, yeah, you know what? It's not clear enough for me to change my mind here. Okay. And I think that's what's happened. The fourth official's gone, perhaps have a look at it. And you know, and I'm not sure this official, the referee, had a great game overall, to be perfectly honest. He took an awfully long time later on about a couple of penalty decisions, didn't he? But yeah, I kind of like the principle of going, you know what? And this is what we don't generally want FES to be used on very marginal decisions, because, as we've said many times, they don't have that many camera angles, they don't have lines to draw. So in principle, I quite like it, but yeah, I can see why, if you're a Pontevedra fan, you're like, that's offside, and the fourth official's pointed it out. So why isn't he overturned? Why has he gone against that? And it's a tricky one.
Yes, absolutely. And you've already nodded there as well, so possibly the other interesting element of the game. Danny Thelema, not only did he miss one pen, he missed two penalties. I think the first one was saved, and then the rebound was handled, so he gets a second crack at it, and then he nails it against the bar. I think our listener, James, who was in attendance, messaged us and said, it's not every day you get to see a striker miss two penalties so close together. So, yeah, it was a big opportunity for Pontevedra to get 3 points, but ultimately they come away with a point against the inform Merida. Into a bit of a Madrid derby at the Santiago Domingo. Alcorcon 0, Atletico Madrileño 1. Key moment in this game happened in the opening 45 minutes, into Jordi Bola was shown a straight red card, Liam.
Yeah, I don't like this decision. The reason why I don't like it is because it's clearly a foul. I get that, but the ball is kind of knocked forward by the Atleti striker, and the ball is clearly going to carry through, for me, to the keeper. I don't think the striker's ever getting to it. So how can Paula be deemed to have been denied a goal-scoring opportunity? Because I just don't see how it's going to lead to a goal score opportunity. It's like, I just punt the ball forward, run into a defender, and then say, well, he's the last man. I want him sent off. Not the right decision for me at all. And frustrating when you think that they then go and look at it, again, and still decide to stick to it. I think he should have looked at it and gone, he's not denying a clear score opportunity. And it does change on that. Obviously the home side hung on till, I think, added time in the first half. They hang on, and then they can see the penalty for handball. One of those ones that wouldn't have been given in the past, but you kind of feel like they have. The guy slides out and with his arms up and does block a shot that's heading for the goal with his arm. So it has to be handball, I think. And that was it pretty much. I mean, Atleti Bay, we know they're a good side, and playing against 10, 1-0 up. They had no real trouble in hanging on to that. And then they stay 3 points clear at the top of Grupo Dos as a consequence.
Yes, unfortunately so. We'd like to see that change sooner rather than later, Liam. Antequera 1, Sevilla Atletico 1, another draw for the home side. They're 6th in 9 games, which is definitely not enough to take them out of the relegation zone, but they are a point ahead of their opponents. Alberto Calado gave Sevilla Atletico the lead from the penalty spot before being sent off after a shameful piece of theatrics, Liam, from David Ramos. Babu equalised for Antequera a couple of minutes afterwards, and that is how it finished at El Mauli. Another draw in Andalusia.
Could you believe that from Ramos? I think it's just embarrassing. And the guy, I mean, Collado, he sort of leans into him with his shoulder. And again, how on earth can the referee look at that and go, yeah, that's a straight red for violent conduct? It's just ridiculous. I mean, Ramos, hang your head in shame. It's just appalling to get a fellow semi-professional, who knows? Professional because it's Collado, isn't it? He plays for Sevilla Atletico, so he's really on a professional contract. I mean, we don't like filiales, but that was, really, really poor, and completely expected it to be overturned. When I saw that the referee presumably was asked to have a look at it again, would use one of their challenges to do so, and he went, no, still a red card. No, I'm sorry, and that's just wrong. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you as you were about to talk about another draw.
Well, I do like David Ramos because I think he's one of the league's shithouses, as we keep calling him. He's a proper instigator, isn't he, in that side? And if Antequera can turn some of these draws into wins, then they'll soon be out of that relegation zone and onto pastures new in better places. This other draw in Andalusia between oh my God! Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Scotland just scored on the screen. It's 2-1 to Scotland, right? I'm going to keep your posture. Anyway, Torremolinos 1, Algeciras 1. Yes. Both goals in the first half, Liam. Iben Rivera with his 4th in the last 6 games to give Torremolinos the lead, and Arastojo equalised with visitors in front of a pretty decent away support. Tell me about it whilst I just admire this goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's about an hour and a half. I mean, an hour and a half in Spanish terms is nothing, is it really? I mean, that is a derby, I suppose, But yeah, I think that was quite a long way. And Algeciras are not amazingly supported at home. And Torremolinos' ground is quite small, I suppose. So, a decent away support probably looks even more decent. They're just I like quite at this level how you can still have people just sort of stood behind the goal base. not did silly steps or anything. They sort of stood behind an advertising hoarding behind one of the goals. So I thought it was a decent turnout from them. Algeciras have an okay season, but not great. They're not flying high exactly. So yeah, it was good. And yeah, I haven't been to Torremolinos, as I said before, for several seasons, and really looking forward to getting back there at some stage because it feels like a really good place to watch a game of Primera Federación, and it's not far from Malaga, is it? So I need to get one of those ridiculous day trips that I do to Malaga the next time and pop down the road and check out who went to Torremolinos. Have you watched the goal again now after I've blathered on for long enough to see
I definitely have.
Every single angle? Was it maybe disallowed?
How many times do you reckon we can get Lawrence Shankland mentioned on a Spanish football podcast? I probably imagine not many, but he is a beautiful, beautiful man. Anyway, up to Nastic for Nastic's Tarragona 1, Marbella 0. Cristobal Paralo's first win as Nastic coach meant David Movilla couldn't win his first game in charge of Marbella. It was a scrappy goal from Marcos Balsega that won it for the home side. But Marbella did look better going forward in this match than they've shown in recent weeks, haven't they?
Yeah, I thought they looked more promising. I mean, they didn't score, did they? So they didn't look that great, and they've only got Betis Deportivo below them in the Grupo dos table. So yeah, it's a big job for Mobby to turn things around. But we do know, don't we, that this, to be honest, the Grupo dos of all of the two groups is certainly they're more tightly bunched, aren't they? Really, so there's certainly potential there if you win sort of 4 in a row. To go from being pretty much rock bottom to being right up in the thick of it. So that's Mobilla's challenge, and yeah, I think there are promising signs there. At least I think he'll feel like, as he should do, because it is a decent squad, that there's potential there for him to affect a fairly swift turnaround in terms of the recent fortunes. A team that really needs to get things turned around and is really struggling to do so at the moment. It came up against a team that's very much on the up, and so the outcome was somewhat inevitable. Ourense 3, Guadalajara 0. Before we start talking about the game, I did find it really amusing that the commentator was pretty much constantly going on about really difficult conditions here, really difficult conditions. I was like, this looks like a typical English pitch. It was a bit wet, a bit muddy. It's like, it's not that bad, But yeah, typical. The Spanish commentator was like, he was making out it was like the baseball ground in Derby back in the 70s and 80s. It was, it really wasn't that bad.
I know. Scotland had just conceded equaliser as well. So now I'm going to
be my God.
Podcast. I know it's all happening hand and heart.
Agony. Jesus Christ.
I am. But this was obviously a great result. We've mentioned the unbeaten, the losing streak that Ourense were on. They couldn't really grab a win at any point, and now they've got three wins and a draw in the last 4 games, including a Copa del Rey win and a Copa Federación win as well. Unbeaten in 6 in all competitions, as you said, and their decision to stick with Danny Lether just seems to be working out well for them, hasn't it? Really, I'm quite surprised about this.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because we were just waiting for him to be the first coach to lose his job, as you'd expect. I think he went through, was it 7 or 8 games? Maybe the one at the 9th time of asking. It certainly was a long time before they won the game, but they started to pick up. They picked up a few draws. But we were like, that's not enough. They've got to win one. And then they did win one. And of course, they beat Oviedo in the Cup and then won the Copa Federación, albeit against Segunda RF opposition. And in this game, yeah, it's amazing how quickly things change, isn't it? Because I'm watching that game between Guadalajara and Real Avilés Industrial, and Guadalajara lost the game, but they played really, really well. And I've seen them play really well a couple of times on the road as well this season. They went at Ponferradina, didn't they? And they were really good on that occasion as well. And they look completely lost at the moment. They conceded a goal at a bad time. I mean, poor old Miguel Ferra had a miserable first half. He should have put Guadalajara ahead, and then he just gave away a ridiculous penalty, cleaned out a Ourense player, the most blatant penalty you ever see. And that was just for half time, and then the whole thing turned. Then I think, they were 1-0 up at the break, Ourense, and the tails were up, and Guadalajara were really poor after the break, and Ourense scored a couple of goals in the first 20 minutes, and that was it really. And Guadalajara haven't won in 8 games now in the league, and they're into the bottom 5, which is a real shame because they started so positively and were playing such lovely football. We know their squad is thin. We know they're really missing Salifa up front, who's been injured for several games now. But yeah, they really are on the slide, and I hope they can turn it around now.
Yes, absolutely. We really hope they manage to get back on track there. Bilbao Athletic 2, Arenteiro 1. Not really a shock here. Back-to-back wins for the filial against a managerless opponent who are now bottom of Grupo 1 after Renzi's win. Obviously, we'll see if that changes with Jorge now in charge. Talavera 0, Unionistas 1. This is an excellent win for Mario Simon's men. 6 games unbeaten now, 5 clean sheets in that run, Liam, and they are finally out of the relegation zone.
Yeah, I think he told me they were rock bottom, didn't he? They were absolutely adrift, even though we were only sort of 6-7 games into the season. I think they only had 2 or 3 points, didn't they? They were massively in trouble, and he's really made a massive difference. Pleased for Gaston Valles as well in this game. He's a guy who I first saw, I think, in Espanyol B's team a few years ago, being really prolific for Vélez Malaga at quite a low level, but scored loads of goals. They were really promising. Even played for Espanyol's first team that season, but it's just kind of lost his way. I think he was at Cartagena, and that didn't really work out for him. He's clearly a decent player, and he's been given a chance at Unionistas and scored the only goal of this game. And yeah, I think he's one of those players who, if he can get them, if he can get on a bit of a run with them, I can see him being, quite prolific at this level once his confidence is back up again. And then that was the first goal will certainly help in that respect. We did mention Oscar Cano earlier on, didn't we, about how he started with a rather uneventful and interesting 0-0 draw midweek in that rearranged game against Ourense. His second game in charge wasn't much better, was it?
No, it wasn't. And there's no shame in going to Ferrol and not bringing home any points, but this was a bit of a uninspiring one. 2 games in, still no goals for Cano Zamora. 23 minutes gone, and the centre-half collides with his keeper, and then Escobar basically just bundles in the loose ball to give the home side the lead. And then in the first half, additional time, his centre-forward then tries to do an overhead kick, ends up kicking the Racing Ferrol keeper in the face. And he basically picks up a second yellow card, and he spends the second half with 10 men. It's not looking glorious for Oscar Cano, really, is it? It's not the start he would have wanted.
No, I mean, I feel a little bit sorry for him because, as we've said on many occasions, he is really under pressure from day one. And yet you start off against Ourense in a game that everybody looks at the league table and goes, well, they got to win this one. But then you forget, as you say, that Ourense went into that game on a decent run. I think they're on 4 games unbeaten before that one, weren't they? And they beat Oviedo in the cup and everything. So they were on the high. And then, of course, as you rightly say, going away to Racing Ferrol, who I'm pretty convinced will be in the top 5 in Grupo 1 is not ideal. And there's 2 things that happen for him that really doesn't matter how good a coach he is. Your keeper, Fermín Sobran, catches the ball perfectly comfortably. And then I don't know if it was because it's tipping it down with rain and the pitch was slippery or whatever, but the centre half just bundles into him, and he unsurpringly he spills the ball, and as you say, Escobar's there to tuck it away, and Carbonell, I'm not sure what he's doing. I mean, he knows he's in a crowded penalty area, he knows he's on a yellow card, and he goes for the spectacular, as you say, just basically commits GBH on the home keeper. So yeah, I'm not saying that Cano is the man for the job. All I'm saying is that if you want somebody to go for you, then the first 2 fixtures he's been handed and a couple of decisions of a couple of his players in this game really are pretty unfortunate for him, aren't they? And he needs to turn things around very quickly, I think. But yeah, he's under pressure, of course, as we knew he would be as soon as he was appointed, unfortunately.
Yes, less Oscar Cano, more Jordi Cano. Europa 2, Cartagena 0. Yet another win at New Sardinia for Europa. 14 points out of possible 18 on their own patch, Liam. And when, the aforementioned Jordi Cano doesn't score, up steps the centre-half to smash her in the bottom corner from 25 yards out on the volley. What a golazo this is, Liam.
Yeah, it's a beauty, isn't it, from Arnaud Campagnès? He's scored one already this season. He's one of those that's been around at Europa for a few years. I love these ones, where they played Segunda Ref for a few years and then they finally get their day in the sun because they've hung around for long enough and proved their worth at that level. And somebody goes, well, I think quite a few of these Europa players have played for them at Segunda Ref level. They haven't made hundreds of signings this summer. But yeah, he's one of those. I think he's played well over 100 games for Europa. And yeah, I doubt he scored a better goal for them. That's an absolute cracker, isn't it, from 25 yards out, as you say. And yeah, they didn't look like they were going to give it up after that. And can I please award the most ridiculous FES challenge of the weekend to the Cartagena bench, who looked at Kevin Sanchez's challenge, which is a shocker. It's horrible. Let's not forget that these benches have got a little monitor as well, so they can actually watch it. How on earth can anybody look at this challenge and go, you know what? I don't think that's a red card. It's unsurprising the ref looked at it and went, you know what? I think it is.
Yeah, it was a deserved straight red for Kevin Sanchez on this one. It just wasn't Cartagena's night, wasn't it? But we've spoken about Ourense club and their need to make sure they make their home stadium in a fortress and get points on the board early doors before the move. Europa very much in the same bracket here, but they are doing it in spectacular fashion as well, Liam, and long may it continue up until the end of January. Looking ahead to next weekend, I've got the joys of picking the 3 games to watch in Grupo Uno, and I'm going back for another bite of Galician derby. This one between Lugo and Pontevedra at 4:15 on Saturday. I will then also take you back up to the aforementioned Arenas Club de Guecho, unbeaten at home this season. So a real test with Tenerife coming to Gobela. It'd be interesting to see whether those boys can get used to those. I don't want to say harsh surroundings, but it's not comfortable, is it, up there in the Basque Country? And Tenerife haven't done well against Basque clubs so far this season. So potential giant killing on the cards, 6:30 on Saturday. And then last but not least, another game in the Bilbao region. Baracaldo against Racing Club de Ferrol, another one up there. Can De La Sota get back to winning ways against the side who have won the last 2 games, 4:00 on Sunday? How about Grupo Dos?
I'm just looking at those Grupo Uno fixtures again, Nick, and going, bloody hell, you got 3 good ones this week, didn't you? We talked before about Grupo Uno having too many filiales in it. Flipping out, I've not seen 3 much better games than those 3. If those 3 end 0-0, I'll be damn disappointed. Yeah, very, very good selections from you there. Mine are okay by comparison. No better than okay, I would suggest. But still some decent, intriguing fixtures here. The first one, Marbella against Atletico Madrileño. Obviously, the home debut for Dalmavia, 4 p.m. on Saturday. We know that Atleti are flying, of course, and this will be a really interesting test to see how much of an effect Marbella has managed to have on this Marbella side already. Will he get a little bit of a bounce after that initial disappointment up in Tarragona, or will Atleti B's class shine through? I will be, all being well, at my second choice, which is Alcorcón against Tarazona. I love the people down in Alcorcón, always incredibly welcoming. And I've said before how much admiration I have for Tarazona. I believe that the coach there as well actually follows us on X. So it'd be nice to catch up with him and thank him for his support. And hopefully have a quick chat with Marc Triez as well, who's rapidly emerging as one of my heroes of the 25-26 season. I've got a lot of time for Marc Triez, and I doubt he speaks much English, but I'll have a little chat with him in Spanish if I can. And then last of all, 6:15 on Sunday evening. This should be another cracking game. Cartagena against Eldense. Eldense absolutely bouncing at the moment. Cartagena not doing quite so well recently. But yeah, this isn't quite a derby. It's a little bit further, but it's not that far. I think Eldense bring a decent number down there, and it should be a really good game.
Absolutely, I think they're quite tasty as well. I'm very much looking forward to hearing of your escapades in the capital as well. I really hope you enjoy yourself. Any Spanish Segunda activities at the weekend as well? Anything to look forward to?
Well, it's another of my ridiculous, outrageous, what on earth are you doing day trips? And unfortunately, Leganés are playing Almería on the Saturday night. So, yeah, I can't make that much. I'm a bit gutted about it. It's one of those where I buy a flight early on for a very reasonable price, but then have to kind of hope that I get something I like. So I've got lucky with Alcorcón against Tarazona. I should be able to make that one, although it's a noon kickoff. I got quite an early flight, but no, nothing, unfortunately, in Segunda to join it. So that's a little bit disappointing. So I'll probably have to look lower down the footballing pyramid for anything more in the remainder of Sunday. How about El Partido?
Oh my God! Oh, so sorry, Liam. Kieran Tierney has just turned in an absolute strike in 92 minutes on the pitch.
Oh, please hang on now, for goodness sake.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, El Partido this week. We're going to be talking about Journeymen. It's going to be really, really cool. So definitely go and listen to that one as well. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing whatever you're up to this weekend as well, Liam. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
Right now. Get the sound on. Go away, and please, Scotland, don't throw it away now.
Oh no! Like say 3 minutes between glory. What a goal that is! Oh my God. Yes, thank you very much for joining us once again.
When you have grandchildren, you will look back and say, I remember the night when I didn't actually watch the most famous game in Scotland's recent history. I was recording a Primera RFEF podcast.
I was talking about Vicente Perez's Teruel side, whilst Kieran Tierney bends one past Castor Schmeichel to get them a place at the World Cup. What a
I will hope very much that you enjoy the last 3 minutes. Go and get the sound on. Thank you so much for doing this evening. Thank you to all of us for listening. We'll catch you soon.
Hasta luego. Oh,